Jordan, The Last Dance, Episode 3, focuses on Phil Jackson and Tex Winner implement something called the triangle offense. This is just a certain whiteboard representation of what the triangle offense does. In certain passes, when you're at the top of the three-point line, as a point guard or anybody that has possession of the ball, they can implement a certain motion. But what you're not seeing is the other triangle that's within that. And you start to initiate a motion within a motion from the first key pass, or we should say movement, and then other movement within the first movement. What happens is you create space and opportunities for easier baskets near the rim and around the rim based upon where you're passing the ball and how you're moving and how the defense is reacting to how you're passing the ball. When you have such a dynamic one-on-one specialist like Michael Jordan, what was happening was teams were double and triple teaming him and stopping him from flourishing, even though he was averaging 36, 37 points a game for the last 3-4 seasons and winning 3-4 scoring championships in a row. He was getting frustrated and having to carry. So somebody like Scottie Pippen, who came up actually playing point guard, has now got the skills required to develop what point forward is. So when people are arguing saying Scottie Pippen weren't good or wasn't the first LeBron, yes he was. Especially when you lead your team in assists and steals and blocks. So now he can flourish in such a system where there's ball movement and passes has become the element of the main focus of the offense. BJ Armstrong, another person, 6'2" point guard, doesn't have to get overshadowed by how much MJ scores, and at this point he can elevate too, and he can flourish in a system where everybody gets to touch the ball and the dynamics and the options are more. So therefore when MJ doesn't have to go one-on-one, they can do other things and move the ball. So a team like Detroit, where they're so predicated on stopping Michael Jordan and being pushed to 7 games, which was what was happening at the time, now have to deal with other options and other teammates and them not having to smother Jordan. Now what happened was they pushed the Detroit Pistons to 7 games in the 90s and still could not get over that hump, because they weren't just being beaten at basketball, but they were taking it beyond that. You're literally jumping on this man's neck, tripping him whilst he's in the air, pushing him on the way down, and as you can visibly see, he had to still shake your hand. You can literally see in these screenshots, that's not a happy person. You just finished getting beat up for 7 games and I gotta shake your hand. You clearly got something in game. I gotta dap you up. I gotta make sure that I show some level of sportsmanship after you've just taken it beyond basketball. And a lot of people are sitting there trying to argue and say, well, that's how it was back then and not everybody shook their hand. No, it's called sportsmanship. So when you hear how visibly frustrated Horis Grant was and how mad he was because everyone on that Bulls team was getting beaten up, right? It wasn't just MJ, it's just they focused on him the most, and you can hear how he articulated what it was like grueling going through them and them having to make a change. You can understand more because the documentary does a good job of articulating and describing what it was like for them to add on strength. They were taking the Detroit Pistons to 7 games off of mentality, off of talent, and off of heart, and now they're adding an extra layer of strength and conditioning and durability to combat what was happening. And when you take that into account, you also have to understand they had somebody like Tim Grover, who's a legendary trainer who was making them wake up earlier and putting more time to focus on adding strength and not limiting their movement, not limiting how fast they were on the court. So what you're doing is you're combining speed and strength along with the basketball talent level to elevate them past what the Detroit Pistons was doing. And the main person who was getting beaten up the most was Michael Jordan. So now when you take into the fact that now he's visibly stronger and can run for longer, you can't beat him. And in this picture, you can literally see the difference in the definition between what he was when he was winning slam dunk titles and when he started winning championships. That's why I took these pictures so people could see the difference. He added on 15 extra layers of muscle to combat being jumped on, being kicked, being pushed, being like brutally beaten up. And that's how he overcame the Pistons team. So when people were saying that it wasn't a thing for them to walk off, no, it was a thing, because after all of that, they still beat you. You got sportsmanship for that.